From birth, we know neither God nor the scriptures. We are taught to walk, read, write, and speak. Otherwise, we would be no different than children brought up by animals. Often people are not brilliant and harbor doubts about God. What God created a world of doubt, murder, and suffering? Can a good God rejoice at sacrifices? The living world we inhabit is essentially a system of survival, to eat or be eaten. A brutal struggle for survival surrounds every flower. In the place of each blossom, dozens of seedlings and multiple seeds have perished. Creatures take risks and sacrifice themselves for the sake of new generations. Not individual, but the survival of the species is the primary goal in nature. A flower's beauty serves to attract bees that will pollinate it. Fruits become sweet to entice animals to spread their seeds, and people smile to draw attention. Over the past centuries, humans have evolved to become taller, smarter, and slimmer. Even pets have developed a consciousness. The reserves of resources enabled humanity to overcome glaciation and breathe freely. This was never possible before because these reserves are made up of bodies of creatures that died in the past. What did God bestow upon people at birth? Unending monotony. In the olden times, child labor led to the death of many children. Even in the Middle Ages, up to half of the children died. Infant mortality was prevalent and birth defects were inevitable due to the incestuous relationships of the first people. Does this seem like a brilliant idea? Wars and epidemics have taken the lives of countless innocent children and animals. These victims have not broken any oaths before God. However, according to divine justice, they must pay for the sins of their forefathers, and animals are merely objects of sacrifice. Our existence is a constant injustice to those we consume and kill for the sake of harvest. Organisms exist for their own sake, not for us, hence why food is not entirely digested. We may find joy in food, but it does not share this sentiment. Animals yearn to live, they put up a fight, and almost all plants are inedible and even poisonous. Did God provide us with a list of beneficial plants? No. Through trial and error, people discovered which plants were safe to consume. All unpleasant experiences gradually cultivated a sense of disgust. The path to survival was extremely harsh. People try to distance themselves from their animalistic past. They cut their hair and nails, cultivate their minds, bodies, and embellish themselves, yet we still possess the remnants of a tail. The need for fur dwindled as we wore skins. Believers view space as perfect, but under other conditions there would be no space disasters, harsh winters, and droughts. These are the factors that lead to famine and war. Biblical man was created in an oasis in the desert. Archaeology verifies that Earth's conditions were far from ideal, but they were better before the Homo sapiens appeared. In those times, our ancestors were the prey of dinosaurs. Glaciation made them intelligent, and disasters freed up a better niche in nature. Despite these changes, we remain a part of the food chain. Microorganisms constantly attack and try to control our cells. This is the root cause of many illnesses and even death. Matter does not decompose by itself. Due to external threats, the renewal of our body is genetically limited, and this is the cause of aging. Sacred knowledge did not lead to any scientific and technological advances. In them, the world begins with the magical word God, and is created in an absurd order. God sits on the solid sky with the ocean, the moon is a giant, and the stars are small lamps. God created man from clay and breathed a soul into him. However, almost all of nature is single-celled. They are living and don't need a soul. Only some of them will survive, having undergone natural selection in the body. They'll reproduce the path of their ancestors, becoming a higher form. Reproduction was always dangerous for the child and parents. The child poisons the mother's body, and the parents risk themselves. For nature, it doesn't matter which cell will become a person. The main thing is the survival of the species. The world wasn't created for a specific individual. Cells differ in genes and evolve into special forms, but all of them, even those dangerous to us, are important in nature. Cold, death, suffering, and survival would not disappear with us, and someone would take our niche. We weren't the center of nature, but we managed to become one because of a special path of development. Our ancestors lived in the forests, in the hair of the planet, and were not useful to it at all. Now we will prove that our world was not created. Space is endless because beyond any border and event there is always something. This is the essence of the law of maintaining balance, equilibrium. Space cannot be created or embraced, and there has always been matter in it. It simply changes its forms. Before our appearance, infinity of time, there was always something here, and God could not suddenly become bored and life could not suddenly appear. For infinity, any object is nothing, but everything around is objects, areas of space limited by the contours of equilibrium. These boundaries are formed by a balance of external and internal forces that are concrete and finite. If God is a being, then he's limited by his contours, and for infinity, he's nothing. To gain superpower, an object must violate the law of equilibrium, the infinite order of other objects, which is impossible. Infinity doesn't need a god, and no creature can compare with it. Our life is a chain reaction of development and attenuation. We achieve success on the path of evolution, desires motivate us, and emotions suggest the right path. However, the ideal God has nowhere to develop, he has nothing to feel and doesn't need to desire. The image of God is the embodiment of ancient ideals. He is vain, selfish, loves submission and exploitation. These are all evolutionary desires. People are looking for power and significance. The God killed children to test their parents and then gave new ones in return. The God of the selfish didn't think about their fate. In the Old Testament, he punished all people and nation for someone's sins. In the New Testament, he's already selective and merciful. People believe that volcanic eruptions were God's punishment, that in hell God tormented people for creating them like this, also in his own image. People's consciousness changed and they edited the Bible. Religion imitates science, has changed the idea of creation, and offers the fulfillment of any desires. The original paradise is a primitive society. Here all monotonous actions have become an instinct, one event in memory. Otherwise, the memory would simply run out of space. Such a life in paradise is simply impossible. After death, the usual perceptions and memories disappear. Remembering is a chain reaction from the brain to the body to the sensory organs. This is a return to the desired state. Without our body, there will be no such memory. Without earthly elements, the particles become a spherical cluster. Our mind is an indicator of solved problems. We worry about our lives and the lives of loved ones. We look for a way out and necessary information in our memory. However, an ideal being doesn't need to think because everything is obvious to him. His actions are correct and don't create problems. For an omnipotent being, nothing can be a problem. The world is constantly evolving and nothing is perfect in it. Space has no contours and neighboring areas constantly influence each other, creating an endless chain reaction. The inertia of one object is transferred to another and allows movement. We live in a global reaction and are driven by the momentum from the breakdown of food and fuel. The reactions of the macrocosm last for billions of years. The sun was charged, and now charges the planets. Without external reactions, internal ones stop and even stars turn to stone. A God in emptiness simply would not have inertia. Science proves with simple examples that God is inconsistent with infinity. He can't create an object that he can't lift, and he can't create a puzzle that he can't solve. However, if God is the cosmos, then he's the heaviest object and the most difficult puzzle. The process of creating a copy of oneself would be endless, and wouldn't deny the potential of God. The cosmos is unique, therefore it's attributed to the properties of personality, the possibility of internal choice and change. But can the cosmos really be a god? Space is a stage, not a participant. This is not an object, it's unbalanced and without boundaries. The cosmos has nothing to interact with, it has no problems, it can't feel or think. Believers place the divine world behind the dark spots of science. However, God in parallel space will also be incompatible with infinity. God is outside of time, outside of processes. It is emptiness. God outside of space exists only in the imagination. A parallel world was invented by those who, by changing the time in the formula, are trying to live forever and reverse the world process. However, seconds are part of the planet's revolution, and the emission of light is the activity of the sun. Round values for the speed of light only mean the synchronicity of the solar system. Force, speed, energy, time are different ways of describing one process. Fantasy turned them into parallel worlds with all sorts of constants. However, we came up with the numbers only for comparison. As a result of their changes, the Earth won't speed up, and the 11th finger won't grow. The speed of processes isn't global but depends on the background interaction, on the density of matter. It differs not in otherworldly worlds, but in the depths of space. Our body is the result of the evolution of light. We interact with it and are limited by its indicators. But beyond our vision there are no buildings and creatures, there are only weak streams of particles. The world is limitless, and that is all there is, visible and invisible. Without connection, a god from the other world couldn't interact with ours, or a soul with a body. With connection they become part of our world, but they aren't here. They aren't needed here. Our life is based on gravity, global interactions that lead to death, disasters, and accidents. To interact with the world, you need to have a form, a force boundary of particles. If God, soul, heaven are concrete, then they change along with the world and cannot be eternal due to global threats. These objects will not be shown to you because they are incompatible with reality. Such a life in paradise requires a similar world, and there is no ideal in it. Beauty is driven by sexual instinct, but intelligence and strength cause hair loss. Continuous birth requires infinite space and matter, and souls cannot come from nowhere. Any change in the principles of life requires a change in infinite space. Eternal global youth means the endless monotonous cycle of the universe. This, like a perpetual motion machine, is incompatible with local equilibrium. A perpetual motion machine is space, but it's not an object and can't be programmed. If there was intention in the cosmos, we would have seen this ideal from the infinite past. All the bad things would remain in the past, and we'd live in this paradise here now and always. In conclusion, faith is a substitute for logic based on fantasy, hiding the truth. The depth of logic is limited by instincts, and the speed of thinking doesn't develop it. Even elementary answers aren't born in primitive consciousness. We must understand that recognizing the truth requires courage and a willingness to abandon beliefs. I welcome everyone who is ready to study the evolution of light and life after death. If this video was helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.